A 9-year-old boy runs away from home one morning in 1861. He's not going to school. He's not going to play with his friends. He goes straight to the train station to join the army and fight in the bloodiest war in United States history. The soldiers find him hiding in the military convoy. Instead of throwing him out, they do something unthinkable. 3 years later, that same boy becomes a sergeant at 12 years old. His name was Johnny Clem, and this is the most incredible story you'll ever hear about a child soldier. John Joseph Clem was born in Newark, Ohio in 1851, but a family tragedy changed everything. His mother died in a train accident, leaving little John devastated and without the maternal figure who protected him. He decided to change his name to John Lincoln Clem to honor President Abraham Lincoln, and that name change was just the beginning of a complete transformation. In May 1861, the Civil War had begun just a month earlier. The men of Ohio were enlisting en masse to defend the Union. The streets of Newark filled with blue uniforms, waving flags, and the sound of military drums. Johnny watched the soldiers march with pride, heard the stories of glory and honor they told in the taverns. One morning, Johnny made the riskiest decision of his short life. Without telling his family anything, he snuck away to the train station. There was a convoy full of soldiers from the 3rd Ohio Regiment, ready to depart for war. The 9-year-old boy, alone and determined, managed to sneak onto that train full of men who were going to fight a real war. The soldiers discovered him quickly, but instead of taking him off the train, something incredible happened. The men of the 3rd Ohio Regiment were impressed by little Johnny's determination. In that era, it was common for regiments to have drummer boys, children who played drums to give orders during battles. They saw in Johnny the perfect opportunity. He was brave, determined, and clearly wasn't afraid. But Johnny didn't stay with the 3rd Ohio Regiment for long. Shortly after, he joined the 22nd Michigan Regiment, where his legendary military career would truly begin. The first months with the 22nd Michigan Regiment were a trial by fire. Johnny was the only child in a camp full of adult men. He had to get up before dawn, march miles with heavy equipment, and learn to survive in conditions that would make any adult cry. The drum that Johnny had to master wasn't just a musical instrument. It was a tool of life or death. The different rhythms meant specific orders: advance, retreat, regroup, attack. A mistake in rhythm could cost the lives of dozens of soldiers. Johnny practiced day and night until his hands bled. The soldiers of the 22nd Michigan adopted him as if he were their little brother. They taught him everything he needed to know to stay alive: how to clean his rifle, how to walk silently in enemy territory, how to find drinking water, how to sleep with one eye open. Johnny absorbed every lesson like a sponge. In April 1862, during the Battle of Shiloh, Johnny lived through his first real combat experience. He was 10 years old. The cannons roared like thunder, bullets whistled through the air, and gunpowder smoke made it almost impossible to see. While adult men panicked, Johnny continued playing his drum with steady hands. During that battle, something extraordinary happened that marked him forever. A Confederate cannonball flew directly toward Johnny and completely destroyed his drum. The pieces of wood and metal flew in all directions. The boy could have died at that moment, but by some miracle, he survived without a scratch. The soldiers began calling him Johnny Shiloh. After Shiloh, Johnny changed. He was no longer just the brave boy with a drum. He had looked death directly in the eyes and emerged victorious. Officers began to notice that this boy had something special. He not only fulfilled his duties as a drummer boy, but showed courage that many adults didn't have. During the following months, Johnny participated in multiple battles with the 22nd Michigan Regiment. Each combat made him stronger, braver, more of a soldier. He learned to use firearms, to fight hand to hand, to make quick decisions under pressure. The soldiers began to see him not as a child, but as a true brother in arms. His constant bravery and dedication so impressed his superiors that they made a historic decision. When Johnny was just 12 years old, they promoted him to sergeant, making him the youngest non-commissioned officer in United States Army history. A 12-year-old boy now had authority over adult soldiers. But the real test of fire came in September 1863, during the Battle of Chickamauga. Johnny was 12 years old and was no longer just a drummer boy. He had learned to lead men and had earned the respect of his entire regiment. He carried his rifle with the confidence of a veteran, though technically he was still a child. During the battle, Johnny got separated from his unit in the confusion of combat. He found himself alone in enemy territory, surrounded by Confederate soldiers. The forest was full of smoke and screams. Any adult would have panicked, but Johnny had learned to stay calm under pressure. When a Confederate soldier shouted for him to surrender, Johnny did something incredible. Instead of surrendering, Johnny raised his rifle and fired. The Confederate soldier fell wounded. A 12-year-old boy had defeated an adult soldier in direct combat. But the situation quickly worsened. More Confederate soldiers appeared, and Johnny had to run for his life through the dense forest, dodging bullets and jumping over fallen logs. He managed to escape and return to Union troops after hours lost in enemy territory. When he told what had happened, at first no one believed him. A 12-year-old boy defeating adult soldiers? It seemed impossible. But other soldiers confirmed. Having seen the confrontation, and Johnny became a national hero overnight, newspapers across the country began talking about the little soldier. Johnny Clem's story spread throughout America. He was the boy who had defied all odds and survived the bloodiest battles of the war. His photo appeared on newspaper covers from New York to California. But fame had a price that Johnny didn't expect. Superior officers decided it was too dangerous to have a child in active combat, especially one so famous. In 1864, when Johnny was 13 years old, he was discharged from the Army. For him, who had spent 3 years of his childhood at war, it was like losing his identity. Johnny returned to civilian life, but his heart remained with the Army. He finished his formal education, something he had missed during his war years. But no matter how much he tried to adapt to normal life, he couldn't forget the sound of drums, the camaraderie of his soldier brothers, the adrenaline of combat. In 1870, at 19 years old, Johnny decided to try to return to military service. He wanted to study at West Point, the country's most prestigious military academy. The problem was that Johnny hadn't had a complete formal education during his war. Years. He failed the West Point entrance exam several times, but didn't give up. His perseverance caught the attention of someone very important. President Ulysses S. Grant, who had been a general during the Civil War, knew Johnny's story. Grant was impressed by the young man's determination and decided to help him. Instead of sending him to West Point, Grant did something better. He directly appointed him second lieutenant in the United States Army. It was almost unprecedented. Johnny had achieved the impossible again. At 19 years old, he was officially an Army officer, not for having gone through military academy, but for having proven his worth on the battlefield when he was just a child. His second military career had begun. Johnny began a new stage of his military life. He was no longer the child soldier. Now he was an adult officer with real responsibilities. He served at different military bases, participated in the Indian Wars of the West, and gradually rose in rank. He specialized in logistics and military administration, proving that his intelligence was as impressive as his courage. The years passed, and Johnny continued serving his country with the same dedication he had shown as a child. He helped maintain peace in difficult territories, trained new soldiers, and proved again and again that his courage had not been coincidental. He was a natural leader who inspired respect and loyalty. In 1915, after 45 years of continuous military service, Johnny Clem retired from the Army. He was 64 years old and had reached the rank of brigadier general. But the most incredible thing of all was that when he retired, he was the last Civil War veteran who was still in active service. He had served his country for more than half a century. Johnny had begun his military career at 9 years old in 1861 and ended it in 1915. He had seen the United States transform from a country divided by civil war into a modern world power. He had served under multiple presidents, had seen the invention of the telephone, electricity, the automobile, and the birth of aviation. Johnny Clem lived until 1937, reaching 85 years old. He saw 2 world wars, technological changes that he never could have imagined when he was that 9-year-old boy running toward a train full of soldiers. His story teaches us something powerful about human determination and the courage that can exist in the smallest heart. His legacy lives on in every person who decides to pursue their dreams regardless of difficulties. Johnny Clem, the 12-year-old sergeant, taught us that heroes come in all sizes and ages. Sometimes the smallest ones are those with the biggest hearts. Asterisk, asterisk. If you enjoyed this story, please support us with a like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next video.